That time of year again, it's Halloween! Hello, boys and ghouls! Tales from the Crypt ran on HBO from 1989 to 1996. It was a horror anthology hosted by the Crypt Keeper, voiced by John Kassir. His puns were groan-worthy, but I dig puns. The stories could be gory, unsettling, funny, frightening, and memorable. Trivia time. The Frighteners and From Dusk Till Dawn both started as planned segments before being spun off into their own movies. The show itself was originally envisioned as a theatrical trilogy, before being retooled into a television series. But eventually they would try the theatrical route again with Tales from the Crypt Demon Night in 1995. It performed just enough to justify a second chapter.
And a nasty bit of scarnal knowledge I call Bordello of Blood.
Alright, there's something familiar about this opening. Honey, I Shrank Indiana Jones. This is Vincent, played by Phil Fondacaro. They're looking for treasure. I mean, what else, right? And they find it, and that treasure turns out to be a coffin.
What the fuck?
Boys, meet Lilith.
That contains an old vampire. The original vampire, in fact. Some assembly is required, but Vincent has the missing pieces. Aw, his mom packed his lunch. It's actually her heart, cut into 4 pieces. And when he removes the little dividers... Yeah, just shove it in there, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Wake up!
Ah, the Ed Harris School of Medicine.
Fight! Fight!
Anyone who's had to wake kids for school know what this is like. Lilith wakes up, of course.
It's the only thing that keeps her in line. Gives whoever possesses the key total power over Lilith.
Anything for you, lover.
And then she rips his face off!
Turns out this was a story a mummy was telling the Crypt Keeper. And yes, that is William Sadler playing the mummy. The little story within a story is actually the prologue to the main feature. Meet Catherine, played by Erica Oleniak. She's a good girl. She listens to sermons while she works out in more clothes than I swim in. And her delinquent brother Caleb, played by Corey Feldman. I'm sure typecasting had nothing to do with this role. He spends his night with his buddies playing a form of darts that was just made for YouTube.
Why don't you just go out and get yourselves laid?
It's not a bad idea.
Here's to get laid.
Ah, who invited Charlie Sheen's id?
You could get the best goddamn piece of ass.
Seems legit. Like fools that go to that exact address. It looks like a nightmare on Nope Street, but they knock anyway. Oh shit, the hookers are a bit worn out. The brothel is located in a funeral home. Well, a stiff's a stiff. Looks like they weren't full of shit after all, and they emerge in Boob Town. I'm serious, I can't show too much without censoring, but let me paint you a picture. Boobs, boobs, boobs. His buddy goes off to get off and gets offed. Say that 3 times fast. And here's where we meet Lilith, the boss, played by Angie Everhart. As far as makeup design goes, I really dig the double fang thing. How can you tell if she's a head vampire? You check her knees for dirt. I'm gonna get letters. Okay, elephant in the room. You have hookers who are vampires, with fangs, in a profession where using teeth is typically frowned upon. I don't have a joke here, I just had to put that out there. Caleb is next. Maybe he'll meet his career in the next life. Cut to a few days later, and Caleb has been missing, along with his career. Okay, I'll lay off. Of course, the cops are no help at all. But as here we meet our hero, Rafe Gutman, played by Dennis Miller. He's a low-rent private dick, emphasis on the dick.
What are you looking at?
And he gets to work fast, tracing Caleb's last steps. Rafe checks out the funeral home during the day, and he runs into this guy again.
Breaking here. Where they need the lights on anyways?
No, that's not David Arquette on meth. I don't know what's wrong with this guy, but he looks amazing to hang out with. Catherine works for an evangelist, Reverend Current, played by Chris Sarandon.
Yes, that we would make it ready for the judgment day.
And why do evangelists always talk like that? It's actually kind of fun to talk like that. And yes, that's Vincent from the opening scene. I'm gonna get letters. Rafe reports his findings. Caleb went to a brothel, and she considers that the end of the investigation. Rafe goes home, gets a nighttime show on HBO, and starts talking to M&Ms. The end. Oh, come on, we're only 30 minutes in. Rafe doesn't let this go just yet, and breaks into the funeral home.
Ugh.
He finds Caleb's earring, and that gives him enough proof to have Catherine start paying him again. So Rafe gets to the house again, but this time as a paying customer.
Guess where you've just landed, lover?
Larry Flint's id?
And again, I have to be selective about what I can show.
Another vegetarian. I hate vegetarians.
Wait till she tries vegan. Rafe slips away, but not before dropping his wallet. I'm guessing that's going to come back to bite him in the neck.
Men. Always leaving something behind.
Oh, and it turns out Rafe's blood is rare and super tasty.
Very rare, this blood type.
So there's our excuse why they don't just kill him outright. Lilith pays him a visit and tries a variety of ways to seduce him, but he's too scared of her to bite, so to speak. But it turns out our good buddy the Reverend is behind the brothel, behind Lilith, and they're doing the Lord's work, i.e. killing sinners. Oh, and he's working on a Vegas-level show with a robot devil and lasers. I'm not joking. Lasers. And when I say lasers, I mean this thing is set to kill rather than stun. I mean, who in their right mind would watch a show like that? I would probably check it out. There's a power struggle within our villains, and Lilith is taking charge now that Vincent has the key. But that oh-so-important MacGuffin is destroyed, and now the cuffs are off. So far, we have bodies that don't photograph, and women who don't show up on video. So the logical answer is... aliens. Kidding.
Vampires. Huh?
Are you crazy?
Why is that crazy? Because I advance a singular theory that the perpetrator of our crimes is an eternal spirit who sustains itself solely through the intake of human hemoglobin through a set of protracted fangs? What is
Shut
that?
up, Ray.
Caleb calls, saying he's in trouble, so they go to meet him. Too obvious.
Wish your brother would have picked a less creepy place. I feel like I'm in a bad Tales from the Crypt episode.
That line made me laugh way harder than it should have. Good news, they find Caleb. The bad news, he's a performance artist now. I mean, he's a vampire. Catherine is captured and Rafe is taken to a hospital, where he stays in the luxurious Sandusky suite. And the nurse is a vampire. Somewhere a goth sexual fantasy is realized. But the sun versus a ripped shirt equals a burning smell. You know, you could take 2 steps to your right. Pointless cameo in 3, 2, 1. Surprising? Was it funny? Catherine tries to appeal to her brother, who's apparently possessed by Beetlejuice.
It's pretty damn cool!
The Reverend shows up accompanied by Rafe. They are ready for battle. The Reverend has stakes, and Rafe has super soakers filled with holy water. That is fucking brilliant. It's a goofy idea that these toys are used to fight vampires, but the concept is so sound you have to wonder why nobody else ever thought of this. And I can't hear Ballroom Blitz without thinking of this scene. But Lilith takes out the Reverend. Oh, jeez. While Rafe rescues Catherine. They go back to the Reverend's studio for the final boss fight. Why go back to the studio? The Reverend told them to broadcast. I guess to warn people about the vampires. Who would believe him? So many things wrong with that plan. But really, it's just a flimsy excuse to get Lilith in front of that super laser we saw earlier. And that cross pattern really does cut her heart into 4 pieces. But it still doesn't quite work until they yank her heart out. And that is solved with a quick poking. Lilith burns up in the most cinematic indicator of a vampire's death. That leaves our heroes driving off into the sunset, and things get frisky.
What's that perfume you're wearing?
It's not perfume. It's sunblock.
I bet he wishes he just found a dick down there. Whoa, dark ending. Bravo! And that was Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood. The idea that a televangelist would enlist the help of a vampire is tough to swallow. Giggity! And I've been a fan of Dennis Miller for years, and he pretty much plays himself here. According to IMDb, most of his lines were improvised. He kept the tone light and comedic, in a stark contrast to the blood and gore. The blending of tones kept things interesting and provided some relief from the more tense scenes. Lilith was a badass villain, albeit a one-dimensional one. It's kinda hard to find a character really interesting when their sole motivation seems to be to kill everyone in sight. Still, love the double fangs. You got your typical horror stock characters, such as the dim-witted useless cop, the pretty blonde in distress, the over-the-top villain, and the cocky hero. And whatever substance this guy is on, seriously, pass it around, dude.
You loosen that headband, okay?
Corey Feldman's character was such a douchebag before he became a vampire, I really felt no sympathy for him when he was turned and ultimately killed. At least in Fright Night, you felt bad when Charlie Brewster's friend died. And speaking of Fright Night, Chris Sarandon played the vampire in that movie. Small world. Despite being a theatrical release, Bordello of Blood still feels like a television production. Such is the way the credits run at the beginning. The TV show had a cinematic quality to them that made them play like mini movies. But on the big screen, Bordello of Blood doesn't really feel big enough. The show was on HBO. You could have blood, gore, nudity, and bad language anyway. There just wasn't anything here to justify a theatrical release. But why not try it someplace where the terror isn't expected? Cat House, Bordello of Blood. Entourage, Bordello of Blood. Maybe if they did Sex and the City, Bordello of Blood. They already came with 4 Crypt Keepers. As far as dark comedies go, Bordello of Blood is pretty dark. The story is cliched and played out, but it's campy in a self-aware way. Miller's snarkiness and smug demeanor don't quite equal a character, but in the end, I did kind of feel bad for him when he died. Some scenes don't seem to pay off, and the pace suffers. When we get to the Super Soaker part, I have to chuckle at the silliness. It's just hard to take the movie seriously, but honestly, I don't think you're supposed to. This is sheer camp. Have fun with it. This is as much a horror movie as Jason X. Bordello of Blood gets a 2.5 out of 5. The comedy is okay, the horror is okay, but when put together, they provide a fun time. Watch it with friends. That being said, it's still a good Tales from the Crypt episode. Just not very good as a theatrical movie. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. If you like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe. You know, I lost 2 subscribers last week. I'm getting desperate. Don't make me try voodoo. And if the vampire was hot, would you? Leave a comment below. This is theNewBee, and as always, thanks for watching.